Now, detonate the reality bomb!
I will build a great, great wall.
Some alien race to come down and threaten us.
Is the singularity near?
The truth is out there.
The military-industrial complex.
The 7 mountains of the influencers of culture.
To be as gods, you know.
Change has come to America.
Catapult the propaganda.
From a secure location on top of the ridge in the heart of the beautiful Missouri Ozarks, this is A View from the Bunker. Now, here's Derek Gilbert.
2018 is going to be a significant year in a lot of different ways. What is ahead for you? That will be some of what we'll discuss with our guest today as we welcome you to A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. You, whether you're watching this at the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Derek Gilbert, or listening via View from the Bunker or at Spreaker, we appreciate you letting us into your home and your consciousness through whatever means you've chosen. Our guest today is a gentleman who has... says he's glad to be alive because he didn't think he was going to live past the age of 40. And if you're watching the video, you'll see both of us now are, let's just say they don't ask us for ID at the grocery store anymore when we're picking up cold beverages, or at least wouldn't if that is something that we should happen to do. Anyway, our guest is one of the coordinators of the very popular and I think edifying Hear the Watchmen Conference. Is the next one coming up in Dallas, Texas, Grapevine, Texas to be precise, March 22nd through the 25th of this year, just a couple of months away. We welcome Mike Kerr back to the program. Mike, good to see you again.
Derek, good to see you, and I got to say, happy birthday to you. We both, we've passed our life expectancy, and here we are.
Well, considering the career choice that I'd taken, which was top 40 radio disc jockey coming out of college, yeah, that's probably true. Thankfully, I discovered after I hit some measure of success, I was on the air in one of the top 5 radio markets back in, 30 years ago. Really, 30 years ago, I was on the air in Philadelphia. And at the time, that was market number 4, I think. 4 or 5, I forget what. It was like L.A., Chicago, New York, or New York, L.A., Chicago, and I think it was either Philly or maybe Dallas, then Philly, whatever. But still, at that point, I thought I had it all and realized pretty quickly that, hey, this isn't really making me happy. So I got out of it quickly enough. But you've been through a journey. Explain to me, and forgive me for sharing this without asking your opinion on this, but I've heard you talk about this publicly before, and I want to touch on this before we get into some specifics about the upcoming conference in March and why people should consider making it a stop. Making plans to attend, either in March. Why is it that you thought you weren't going to survive past the age of 40?
Well, that's and I don't mind you asking the question. It's a good question. I had a wild life. I started my career on Wall Street and then went into commercial real estate. And, through a series of events, my life completely blew up. And I ended up homeless on the streets of Los Angeles. That was about 25 years ago. One day, one particular night, I went to sleep in the alcove of a Korean church of all places in downtown Los Angeles. And that evening, some other homeless person stole my shoes and my socks. So that next morning, I woke up. And there I am in the streets of Los Angeles with no shoes, no socks, barefoot. And I walked near the train station and sat out in front of a very famous restaurant called Felipe's in downtown L.A. And I was just distraught, Derek. I mean, I was just at the end of my rope. And I prayed a very simple prayer. I said, God, kill me or save me. And I was fine with either decision he made. I was fine with it. And I sat there, and about 10 minutes later, a guy walked up to me and handed me a pair of sandals and flip-flops. And he said, I don't know why I put these in my car today, but it looks like you need them. And he handed them and he left. And I sat there, and about, another 15, 20 minutes later, I suspect, a man walked up to me and handed me a $5 bill. And he said, this $5 will change your life. And he says, I don't know why, I don't know how, but I know it will. And he walked away. And I wasn't begging or panhandling. I was just sitting there. And, by the grace of God, I took that $5 and I got on a bus and I rode down to Santa Monica, California, and got myself into a program there that turned my life around. And I really never looked back. There's been some hiccups along the road, like we all have. But here we are today. And that's why, there was a lot that went on. I mean, it was a long journey back. I had to go to jail for some issues that I had back then when I was home. And I spent about 6 months in the county jail. And, when I got back, my life just got better and better and better because when I was in jail, Derek, I finally got down on my knees on the floor of a dirty jail cell and finally repented to the Lord for everything. It wasn't one of those, I didn't say the prayer that he's so tired of hearing, which is, God, if you get me out of this one, I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
I just accepted what I had done. I accepted what I had done, and I got on my knees and truly repented. And not just like, well, I'm sorry, really went through my life and got clean with Jesus on the things that I was carrying such guilt over. And so that's why I say, Hear the Watchmen. When I got the message from the Lord, it was very clear. I had a vision, a dream one evening about putting on an event at a particular hotel, which you were at last year. It's the hotel in Boise, Idaho, the Riverside. And in that dream, the Lord said to me, gather my people. And that's it. I had no other direction. So Jeannie and I had gone to a conference in Bozeman, Montana, called the Whitestone Remnant Conference, and it changed our lives. Now, what's important for the listeners to know, or the viewers to know, is that at the time that we went to that conference, Jeannie was completely on board. She was awake, and she had, I drove home from work one day and tried to pull under the garage, and there was a pallet in the middle of the garage, a solar generator, and a year's worth of food, and I'm like, what is this all about? And she said to me, I'm going to go to this conference in Bozeman, Montana, and the Hagmans are going to be there. And I didn't really even know who the Hagmans were. And Steve Quayle, and I thought he was really, that's all Jeannie ever talked about was the Hagmans and Steve Quayle and the New World Order and all this stuff. And I don't want to go. I said, I don't want to go. Where is it again? And she said, Bozeman, Montana. Well, I got to thinking, I love to fish. And, we live up in the mountains of Idaho now, and I spend all summer long, every chance I get, going fishing. So I thought to myself, Bozeman, some of the best trout fishing in the world is located just outside of Bozeman, Montana. So I told her, I'll go, but I'm going to go fishing. And I looked at the schedule. She was going to be busy from like 8 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. I thought, this is perfect. She won't be bugging me like, are you done yet, or anything like that. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to go. So we decided to drive up. We lived in Southern California at the time. And we drove up there. And when we got to the hotel that it was at, she had volunteered to help set up. And she said, will you just come in for a minute with me and meet some of these people? And so I said, well, that's fine, but just don't leave me alone. Just don't leave me standing there. And I'll hang out here for about 20 minutes, and I'm going to go to the hotel, and then I'm going to go find my fishing spots. And so we went in, and my wife. You met her. Within like maybe 2 minutes, she was off talking with people and helping out, and I'm left standing there, And so I'm looking around, wondering like what I'm supposed to do. And she had the key to the room, and so I didn't know where she was, and I'm just standing there. Well, all of a sudden, this guy walks in, and he's struggling, carrying all these books, and he's all by himself, and he's trying to set up his table. And I said, can I give you a hand with that? And he said, I'd really appreciate it. So we lay some books out on the table, and we bring all the boxes in from his car. And he says, look, I'll be back in about 20 minutes. Can you just sit here and watch my table? I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So I sat there, and all these people are coming up asking me about the books and which one's the best and all that. And And I'm like looking at the back cover, and reading the synopsis. And Jeannie had a couple of books. And so I'm saying, well, here, this one, I know my wife really likes this one. Well, 20 minutes turned out to be about 2 hours. And by the time this gentleman came back, I knew everything about the books that he had on the table. And it turned out to be Steve Quayle. And I sat there with Steve the whole weekend, every break, helping him to sell his books and listening to him talk to people. And I never did go fishing. I attended all the sessions and then ended up getting baptized on Sunday by Pastor Langford and Steve Quayle. So if you're in one of those marriages where, your husband might not feel or believe the same that you do, or your wife, might not believe, tell them to come to Dallas and go shopping, because there's a big shopping center right across the street from the hotel that we have. Just get them there, because it's likely that once they get there and they feel the power in those rooms and they start meeting the people, that they too will become a true believer like I did.
Right. That's one of the things that's really struck me over the last few years, is that not knowing what to expect the first time we attended one of these conferences, whether it was the first Future Congress back in I have to look at the wall. I've got a poster from one of the first conferences back in 2011, I think. And the first time that we attended Hear the Watchmen, which was a year ago, Dallas, not really knowing what to expect from the makeup of the people there. Once you get there and you find out that there is, I don't know if using the word energy is right, because that sounds kind of new agey, but you feel the spirit that's there amongst the people, and you realize that the people who attend these conferences, contrary to what you might read from critics or skeptics of this type of conference, these are people who are intelligent. They're not they're not followers. They're seekers. They're hungry for information. But I think even more than that, they're hungry for the fellowship that comes from knowing there are other people out there like them who are trying to dig deeper into God's word and find out what it means, how to rightly divide, and just connect with other people who understand that we're in the middle of a supernatural battlefield. We're deployed on a battlefield in the middle of a war. And unfortunately, sadly, most American Christians don't recognize that fact, and just think of Jesus as some sort of cosmic life coach whose main job is to help us live our best life now. And I'm not using that book title to point a finger at any particular popular New York Times best-selling pastor, just, pointing out, like, that runs so contrary to what Paul wrote. If our hope in Christ is in this life only, we are the most miserable of men. The whole point is we're supposed to focus on the ultimate prize, the distant goal, not what's happening today. Today is a step toward getting to that goal, and I think when you get around people at a Hear the Watchmen conference, you're amongst hundreds of other people who get that, who understand that. So when it came time to trying to fulfill this mission, let me back up a step. When did you recognize that this was your calling? I mean, you went to Bozeman to go fishing. You wound up basically running Steve Quayle's book table. How did that translate into running your own conference?
Well, it's interesting. It's because we all have different walks. When we come back, I felt that I was a Christian, but I was more of a mainstream Christian after I had rebuilt my life and come back. I was just more mainstream than anything. Mm-hmm. But I had questions that the church couldn't answer. And so that's what happened at that conference. I found that there were lots of people with the same questions that I had. And the speakers seemed to be addressing those questions. I was also highly motivated by listening to Coach Dave Daubenmire at that conference. It was the first time that he had spoken. He wasn't on the agenda. He just happened to come there with someone, and they said, "Hey, why don't you take about 20 minutes of my time today?" And he did. And, what motivated me from what Coach Dave was saying is he was saying, get up out of your chair and do something for Jesus. And so, it just evolved from there, Derek. And, I always joke at the conference, when God went through his Rolodex to try and find someone to do this mission, my name had to be the last one on his list. I mean, he must have called everybody else and they said, I'm busy, but, you need to talk to my agent. I don't know what they said, but Jeannie and I just started putting it together, and I'll tell you what, the first one was very frightening for us. We sold our home in California, used the proceeds from the home sale to finance the first Hear the Watchmen.
Wow.
And then we did it there, and we just had faith, Derek. We had faith that it would work out. And it did work out, and we saw the need based on that, because what I witnessed happen there were people from all over the world who came together. It was almost as though they had trekked across a desert, and they finally found an oasis. And the most touching thing to me that happens during the conferences is when I stand in the back of the room alone or behind the stage during the breaks, and I hear the roar of people fellowshipping. And the same thing happens to me when we have a speakers dinner, which you know about, that's private for all the speakers who come to pray the night before the conference starts. And it's so wonderful to be in that room and to watch all the speakers fellowshipping and exchanging ideas and talking about things. That is what it's really all about. And we just feel, Jeannie and I feel, that it's so necessary right now for all the remnant body to gather, to make connections. We had a gentleman by the name of Mark Sutherland who came all the way from London, who thought he was out of his mind. He thought he was out of his mind. Mark will be back to this next conference. He had a wonderful time at the conference in Dallas last year. He made all kinds of friends. Pastor Casper McLeod visited with him when he was over in London recently. And that's what happens. People who felt totally alone connect with others. I mean, we've had people, Derek, who come to the conference and meet one another and find out that they live blocks away from each other, and they didn't even know they existed, and they thought they were all alone. Mm-hmm. So that's really, I think, what God wants. God wants, of course, all of you to hear the message. And we have some wonderful speakers this year. We have yourself. We have Josh Peck. We have Henry Groover will be there.
Yeah.
Henry rarely speaks in the United States, so we're excited about that. L.A. Marzulli, Pastor Paul Begley, Josh Tolley, Dr. Michael Lake. The list goes on and on and on. And it's just, it's an opportunity for people to learn from people like you and the other speakers, and for people to think. Now, Hear the Watchmen's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. There's no doubt about it. You go to some conferences and it's all pre-trib, or it's all aliens or something like that. We have a mix of everything. And our desire was to give people the information so they can make their own minds up about who they want to follow and what they want to believe. And, we tell everybody that attends our conference, you keep the trib debate in the parking lot, because this conference, we just don't care. What we care about is the love of Jesus, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, and and the focus of the conference. And just to be clear, for people who may not be familiar with the Hear the Watchmen Conference, it is not a prophecy conference per se. It is more of a. There are all kinds of messages that come together at this, and so you're right. It is a broader spectrum of messages. But again, it's not a prophecy conference in and of itself. There will be some prophetic words that are coming. In particular, Mark Taylor and Mary Colbert co-authored the Trump prophecies, which is mind blowing. And I know a lot of people are really skeptical about that. To be honest with you, with my background coming from very high church denominations, where everything is on the organ, everything in the service is in the program. You don't say anything that isn't written down in the program. Very call and response. Pastor says this, congregation says that. You sit on your hands even for the special music because that clapping in church is disrespectful. And then suddenly to find yourself in amongst people like Mark and Mary who come from a charismatic background. For a lot of people who come out of high church denominations, is very different. I mean, they've got a different vocabulary, different lexiconography, different points of reference when it comes to Scripture and how they fit prophecy into their worldview. Sharon comes from a Southern and Independent Baptist, and even that is different from the Charismatics, but also very different from my, Lutheran church upbringing. So you've got a variety of people coming together, but as long as we're all together on the main point, which is, 1 Corinthians 15, first few verses, the gospel by which you are saved, Christ died according to the scriptures for our sins, rose again on the third day in accordance with the scriptures, that's the gospel by which we are saved. We'll start there. We're all in agreement on that. And then from there, we'll start digging into things, and we may not agree on everything, but we can do so from a position of all aiming at the same target, and knowing that together, we can settle this all out once Christ comes back at the head of the heavenly host, and he tells us, well, none of you had all of this right, so all of us are going to have to make some corrections once we get to the final destination.
Yeah, absolutely, Derek. It's a journey, right, for all of us.
Right.
I mean, and it's so fascinating to watch. You take like Pastor Carl Gallups, who I was scared to death of when I first asked him to come to one of our conferences, and I couldn't have been more off. He's like the nicest guy. He and his son Brandon are like a walking comedy team for Jesus, but you take him.
That's absolutely right.
You take Casper McLeod. Isn't it? I mean, they are. They are like a walking comedy. That I can't be around the two of them. I try to interview them together, and it takes at the conference when they're there in person. I'll interview the two of them together, and it takes to get 20 minutes down takes about an hour.
Yeah.
Because they just keep cracking me up the whole time, But you take someone like Carl, and then you take like Pastor Casper McLeod.
Yep.
Now, they couldn't be at opposite ends of the spectrum on their beliefs, but they are friends and brothers now, and they advise one another on things, and it's just wonderful to see that sort of thing happen. Now, the other thing that happens at the conference, we do prayer calls, and we do altar calls, and we do baptisms on Sunday. But, this last year, we brought a couple there, Jeanette and Douglas. They're from New York. Jeanette had cancer, and she came to the Hear the Watchmen Conference in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we all prayed over her. She went back, and her cancer went into remission. Between Knoxville and last year's Dallas, things took a turn for the worse for her, and so they couldn't afford to come out to the conference. So all of us, the speakers and Jeannie and I, we all took up a little collection, and we were able to fly them to the conference and get them a hotel room so that they could enjoy the 3 days, and we wanted to pray over her. Well, the night of the speaker's dinner, I went outside the restaurant for a second into the hallway, and they happened to walk by, and I said, hey, stand right here for a second. I went back in, and I got Pastor Begley and his wife, Heidi. Heidi had a prayer blanket that she had made for Jeanette. We came out right there in the hallway of the hotel. Pastor Begley prayed over Jeanette, and it was just a very touching morning. Now, as you know, things at the conference get very busy. I did not see them until Sunday evening at the conclusion, when we had closed everything down. Jeannie and I went with Pastor Casper McLeod and one of his friends to have dinner there in the hotel. And in walks Douglas and Jeanette. Now, when I saw Jeanette before that speaker's dinner, I thought, I don't know if she'll make it through this conference. I mean, she just looked ashen gray and weak, and I didn't know how she was going to do it. When she came into that restaurant that night, her skin was pink. She had a big smile on her face. She had energy. And we all looked at her and said, Jeanette, this is a miracle. And her husband, Doug, started crying. And he said, she hasn't felt this good in a year. And she's told me she was going back to the doctor when they got home on Monday, and she let me know how it went. Sure enough, like 2 or 3 days later, not only did she email me to tell me that her cancer was completely in remission, she sent me all the test results from what the doctor's tests. And she said the doctor has never seen anything like this. He said he has no explanation for it. But we know the explanation. Yeah, we know what happens. I mean, that's what God does. He restores us. I mean, look, if you can take a guy who was homeless on the streets with no shoes and no socks, and you can offer him the redemption that the Lord offered me, and then ask him to lead conferences that would usually have 1,000 people in attendance across the country, and put him in touch with people like Dirk and Sharon Gilbert and Josh Peck and Henry Groover and all these people that are now my dear friends. I mean, that's the way the Lord works. And that's what happens at Hear the Watchmen. I mean, you see miracles like that happen over and over. We've had one couple got engaged. The kid came up to me and asked me if he could ask his girlfriend to marry him in Knoxville. They came back last year to Dallas, married. They're coming back, I think, this year, Lord willing, with their first child in tow. You know, all as a result of being at the Hear the Watchmen Conference. We had another marriage happen. We've had marriages restored. Just amazing things that have gone on at the conference. And you've been a witness to a lot of that.
Yeah. It's really remarkable. And again, coming from a denomination and a church upbringing where Jesus was again presented as more of an example for living rather than as our champion. Our dread champion in this war against the spirit realm, it's adjusted my worldview, and that I think has really helped a lot. Sharon will vouch for this, that my walk has changed considerably over the 20 years that we've known one another. By the time this airs, we will have just celebrated our 20th anniversary. When we first met, I was still arguing that there was no contradiction between Darwinian evolution and the and the Bible. I have since reversed course on that, but beyond that, it was realizing that we don't need to try to take our faith and fit it into science, because science somehow trumps what we've been taught. I mean, the spirit realm. I mean, it's been an interesting journey as I've realized that begun to realize how much I was indoctrinated into a positivist worldview. And positivism is simply a fancy word that means a belief that science is the only accurate tool for finding truth. And of course, we know from Scripture that Jesus is truth with a capital T, the truth, the life, and the way. And again, attending a conference like this, you're around other people who are intelligent and rational and well-adjusted, productive members of society who already get that. So, I'm playing catch-up. Sharon is way ahead of me on this. I'm playing catch-up, and so I'm just honored to be a part of this this gathering and contributing in a small way to this sort of thing. One of the most interesting speakers that we had the opportunity to meet in Boise was Rabbi Zev Porat, who we've interviewed since then, and we're looking forward to seeing him again in Dallas, and hopefully we'll see him in May when we tour Israel, just in time for Israel's 70th anniversary of independence. Zev Porat, what is it about him and his unique walk that makes him a valuable addition to the speakers lineup at Hear the Watchmen?
Well, Zev is an amazing man. I mean, he's filled with the Lord. But what Zev brings Zev was raised to become a rabbi. His entire family, all the men in his family were rabbis. When he started when he followed the faith and did all the things and went all to the right schools over there, but he never felt the connection. And when he converted, when he became Christian, his family ostracized him. Yeah. They wouldn't have anything to do with him. But what is interesting with Zev is he brings that perspective of that journey and that salvation. And, Zev goes out into the streets of Israel and preaches the gospel. And, I mean, he's been attacked. He's been called names, and he doesn't care. He just keeps going. He's actually even gone to China and in the underground in China to preach there, where he was followed the entire time he was in China. He was followed by the secret police and all that, and he doesn't care. He's just he's one of the few men I've met, somewhat like Henry Groover, actually, who when you talk to him, you just know he totally trusts the Lord. He totally has faith and trust no matter what he does or where he goes. And he's just an amazing speaker. You heard him in Boise. I mean, he brought the roof down in that conference, and he's just a wonderful guy, wonderful man, and you know, he's kind enough. We're on a very tight budget with Hear the Watchmen. He doesn't ask us to pay for his airfare or anything. He flies himself from Israel over here. He tried to pay us for his hotel room the last time he was here. The guy he is so humble. And I was actually introduced to him by Carl Gallup. That's how I got to meet. So, and Carl sent me an email one day and said, you should think about this guy to be your one of your speakers. And I was like, I don't even know who this guy is, you know. And so I interviewed him on my show, on my YouTube channel, and we immediately bonded. I mean, it was just an immediate connection between the two of us, and he just delivers a wonderful message of the Lord and really breaks it down.
Yeah, the thing I found interesting in talking with him outside of the sessions and then interviewing him on View from the Bunker here several months ago was not only does he help us Christians, Western Christians, you know, Gentile Christians, understand better the Hebrew roots of the faith, and that's not to say that he's, you know, we won't get into the debate of, you know, whether or not we still need to follow the dietary laws and all that, but we can't deny the fact that Christianity is rooted in Judaism. I mean, it is the outgrowth of what God delivered to Moses on Mount Horeb, on Sinai, and we have lost that connection at some point in our history, and that is the work of the enemy, trying to drive that wedge, sever the Gentile church from its Jewish roots, its ancestry. But he also, Zev, can share with us how we go back then and witness to our Jewish brothers and sisters, because, you know, as Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. So, and because we Christians don't understand the cultural milieu of our Jewish friends, that we can sometimes say and do things that create more stumbling blocks, more obstacles between them and the gospel. So Zev is a valuable friend to have because he comes out of that and understands it far better than we do, far better than most other Jews do, frankly, because as you pointed out, his whole family is in the faith. His grandfather, if I remember the story correctly, is actually a member of the reconstituted Sanhedrin. So
absolutely,
yeah, and as you say, he's very humble, he's willing to talk to anybody.
And he loves to talk to people, you know, and that's another thing, you know, for your viewers to understand, that when they come to these conferences, there's no green room for the speakers or anything like that. Everybody's available, and folks, they want to hear from you. I mean, they want to talk to you. And so they all have tables in the back of the room, and at the breaks. I mean, it's quite often at the conference, I'll go down early in the morning and I'll see someone like yourself from Sharon or L.A. Marzulli and his wife having breakfast with just some attendee from the conference, sitting there talking and spending time with one another. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the other, because I've gone to other conferences where the speakers are kind of kept, you know, off
sequestered.
To the side. That is not our deal.
Yeah.
Sequestered. That's not our deal. We encourage everybody to come up and meet their favorite speaker and meet the other speakers. You know, one of the best compliments that I ever received was a guy came up to me and he said, you know, I've never agreed with anything L.A. Marzulli said, but you know, when I sat there and listened to him today, he really made me think. And you know, if that's what we can do at the conferences, if we can present people who they get people to think, you know, to spark something in their mind, which is what happened to me in Bozeman, Montana, is the candle was lit. Once I went to that conference, the candle was lit, you know, and it hasn't gone out yet, and I don't believe it'll go out until, you know, the day I go to the next life. But it's just, it's so touching to watch these things happen and to watch you guys as speakers. I mean, it's very touching to me because I've come to know all of you. You're like family to us, to Jeannie and I. And, when we see all of you getting all the people coming up and talking with you, it makes up for, let's face it, there's some trolls out there. I know people find that hard to believe, but there are a couple of them out there that attack you and me and everybody else. It's just so nice to see, you guys enjoying time with the people who actually listen and appreciate what you do.
Yeah, and it's not about...
It's something else.
And I was going to say, it's not about feeding our egos or anything like that. It's I speaking for myself. I gather for a long time I'd figured out that what I inherited from my dad is a desire to understand how things work. Dad was an engineer. Now I didn't get those genes. I'm not an engineer. That's my sister. She's actually a tire mold designer for Michelin, believe it or not. But a desire to figure out why things work and how they fit together. And that's what's led me into all the research I've been doing for the last couple of years. On, for me, a fun Friday night is finding a new paper on ancient Mesopotamian cosmology. Couldn't sleep the other night, Mike, and I actually wound up spending a couple hours in the middle of the night reading a book about the cult of Molech. Do I know how to have a good time or what? But from my mother, I've just yeah, I know. You can't stop me. You can only slow me down. But what I've inherited from my mother, who was a school teacher at a one-room schoolhouse in North Dakota before she packed up and moved to Chicago because she didn't want to be a farmer's wife, I guess. In North Dakota, I can understand that. The winters there are kind of rough, as just being west of there. But from her, I guess I've inherited a desire to share the knowledge, I guess a spirit of a teacher's heart, if you will. So for me, that's why I enjoy going to these conferences, because once you get me started talking about this stuff, good luck shutting me up. So that's why I appreciate these things.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect because you have 3 days that you can talk with people and see people around, and there's plenty of time. And I want to tell you folks, you want to get this book. He's not kidding. This is Derek Gilbert and Josh Peck, The Day the Earth Stands Still. I'm telling you, it's a fascinating read. He'll have that book with him at the Hear the Watchmen Conference, and I bet if you asked him, he'd autograph it for you.
More than likely. And I'll be talking about that. That'll be the topic that I'll be talking about during my presentation, the strange connection between the modern ancient aliens theory and the horror fiction author H.P. Lovecraft and the occultist Aleister Crowley. They all fit together.
Wow.
Yeah, you can draw a direct link from Crowley through Lovecraft to Eric von Daniken and Chariots of the Gods, and I'll show how that all fits together, and then we'll also tie it into Bible prophecy. It's really strange. That's all there in the book. And of course, Josh, who will be conducting a workshop there, he did some fantastic work on that book as well, especially regarding the release of email from Hillary Clinton's campaign chair John Podesta and the contacts that the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell, sixth man on the moon, was trying to make to get to President Obama to share 0-point energy and other technology from aliens. So, yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling, the stuff that was going on there. But let's get into specifics, Mike. Well, a couple things. First of all, you host a program, and I should have mentioned this right up at the front of the program, my program here, a video program, vidcast, if you will, Hear the Watchmen Journey. And many of the people who speak at Hear the Watchmen are guests on the Hear the Watchmen Journey. So if people want to find out specifically or learn a little bit more about a lot of the speakers, they can just go to your program and watch the program that you produce from, well, where you're sitting right now. Where do people find that?
They just go to, all you really have to do is Google Hear the Watchmen, MEN, YouTube, and it'll come right up. It'll be the first thing that hits. It's Hear the Watchmen Journey. Most of the interviews are 20 minutes to a half an hour long. And we just talk about what's going on with the different people that we interview. I interview all of our speakers from the conferences. If you dig back in there, I think there's almost 500 interviews or videos that I've posted on there now. If you go back in and look through it, you'll actually see some of the presentations from past conferences in their entirety posted there, and you can look at it there. You can also go to Vimeo, Hear the Watchmen on Vimeo, and you can rent, so to speak, the entire past conferences are there. You can see them and see all the speakers. And I do want to let folks know, Derek, that we will be providing an on-demand program of the Dallas conference, just like we did before. What we did, folks, is when Derek speaks, we will record his speaking, and then within about an hour after he's done, it's up. We did that rather than live stream because it lets us provide the viewer with a much better product than the live streaming, where you don't have any glitches or you don't have any problems. That will be available here within the next 2 weeks to reserve your spot on that. But there's a lot of ways to connect with us. What you want to do is go to www.hearthewatchman.com. If you click the contact button, you want to drop me an email, talk to me about anything that's on your heart or ask me questions about the conference, just feel free to do that, or come right directly into my inbox.
All right.
So we are encouraging people to sign up. You know, we are developing a schedule and nailing down all the topics from the speakers, and we hope to have that done by February 1st.
Very cool. Mike Kerr is, along with his wife, Jeannie Moore, the coordinators of the Hear the Watchmen conferences. Again, the next one coming up at the Hilton DFW Lakes Conference Center in Grapevine, Texas. That's a northern suburb of Dallas, very close to the airport. March 22nd through the 25th. And we are looking forward to getting together with the whole group there, and especially seeing you and Jeannie again.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you and Sharon, and again, happy birthday to you and happy anniversary.
Thank
coming
you.
up. 20 years. That's a landmark right there. That's a landmark. So we're looking forward to seeing you and having you guys back, and you're just family to us.
Again, the website is hearthewatchmen.com. That's hearthewatchmen.com, and you'll find that link in the show notes at vftb.net, and also below this video if you happen to be watching this at youtube.com/Derek Gilbert. And as you can see, we're got a better looking setup than we've had for this type of vidcast in the past. Sharon did yeoman's work as a birthday gift to me, setting this up and kind of dressing the area here. So we've got something that actually looks a little more professional. Now I just have to up my game and, wear more than just a t-shirt, I guess, from here on out. But this is how I broadcast for many years in the radio booth, and so this is what I feel most comfortable in when I'm sitting in front of a microphone. The toughest challenge is, and has been, even with Skywatt TV, talking into a microphone has never been a problem for me, at least not once I got past the first few months of, raw, unabated terror. Once I got past that part, then shutting me up again was the difficulty. Now the main problem is just remembering to keep looking at the camera instead of just looking everywhere else, which is what you do when you're on the radio. Anyway, so we've got that conference coming up March 22nd through the 25th. March 22nd through the 25th. Calling back to the conference from October, the Blessed Hope Prophecy Forum in Norman, Oklahoma. The DVD sets are now available. You can get those from Prophecy Watchers. Those will be shipping this month. Prophecy Watchers, of course, that conference featured Tom Horn, Gary Stearman, L.A. Marzulli, Bill Salas, Rabbi Jonathan Kahn, Tim Alberino, Josh Peck, Sharon, myself. Sharon and I both gave 3 presentations each at that conference. So the DVD set will have all of those presentations. Some fascinating talks by Dr. Randall Price, Dr. Danny Ben-Gigi, and just Carl Teichrieb, another deep thinker, Ken Johnson. So just fascinating stuff, but you'll find all the information at prophecywatchers.com. That's the place to go to get that DVD set. We highly recommend it. What else did I want to talk about? Well, of course, Mike brought up the subject of the book, The Day the Earth Stands Still. And as I talked to Josh Peck at the office today, I'm remiss in not having him on A View from the Bunker since the book came out. Should have done that in conjunction with the release of the book, which was December 1st, and I didn't. I, for some reason, have not ever really thought about using my own podcast to promote my own stuff, which seems kind of silly. I enjoy talking to other people about what they're doing. And when I talk about my own stuff, it seems like I should be doing it on someone else's forum, whether in front of a crowd or, on someone else's program as an interview guest. But we've got the ability to put together a program. So Josh will be a guest coming up. We'll probably record that over at Skywatch TV. But that will be coming up on the 21st of January. And having said that, I'm also remiss in not having had Sharon on this program. But I think one time, and that I think we was recorded at the Hear the Watchmen Conference, or rather the Prophecy Watchers Conference in Colorado in 2016. So, yeah, I am really, really bad about that because she's got 3 novels out now in the Red Wing saga, which are beginning to attract some attention from people who are being drawn into the storyline, drawn into the characters. And I can see why, because Sharon is an excellent, excellent writer. And she also crafts some really engaging and intriguing plots. And this is one of the things that's really cool about the two of us doing what we're doing. She is taking some bits of information that I've been digging up in my research and using them to shape the plots that she's developing for the Red Wing saga. And it is really fascinating. So anyway, those will be Sharon and Josh will be the next couple of guests coming up on A View from the Bunker. Then I want to get into some, and I'll have to extend these invitations because I haven't done so yet, but there are some other folks that I want to talk to about the UFO and abduction phenomena to return back to the subject of The Day the Earth Stands Still, our new book. The package still being offered by Skywatch TV. You'll find that at skywatchtvstore.com. That includes Mike Heiser's 2 novels, The Portent and The Facade, Josh's book, Unraveling the Multiverse, which is updated and revised editions of Quantum Creation and Cherubim Chariots, all in one volume. So some good stuff there. Plus the DVD interviews that we conducted down in Roswell, or DVDs of the interviews we conducted down in Roswell last July at the UFO Festival. Stuff never before seen, and some of the stuff is jaw-dropping. Joyce Ahrens, Daryl Sims, Mike Heiser, Joe Jordan, Guy Malone. Check those out. So the whole package worth getting, and there's a bunch of other stuff, goodies that Tom has put together for this package that you want to take advantage of as well. The book is doing very well, and we thank you for that. Even with the package deal that Tom is offering, the book is doing well at Amazon. And of course, those are people who are buying the book at Amazon rather than taking advantage of all of the other stuff available from Skywatch TV. The book has been the number one. Now, at the time you watch this may be old news. As of this recording on January 5th, it's been the number one new release at Amazon in the science and religion category for 3 straight weeks, which is, to me, that's mind-blowing. It's encouraging because we've actually been keeping the skeptic Michael Shermer, the publisher of Skeptic Magazine, from the number 1 slot, which, he may be a nice man. I don't know. All I know from him is the stuff that I've read of his. He just reminds me of the line from the movie The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, which is a tongue-in-cheek parody of 1950s atomic monster movies where a scientist character says, "I'm a scientist. I don't believe in anything." That strikes me. Maybe I'm wrong, but that strikes me as Mr. Shermer's worldview. And so anyway, probably not a Christian response, but I do find it amusing that The Day the Earth Stands Still is keeping his new book out of that number 1 new release slot. And we give, and if we've got anything right at all in the book, okay, the credit goes to the one who's inspired us and given us the gifts to research and to write. It's not me trying to pat myself on the back, because in my earlier career in secular broadcasting, directed a lot of people the wrong way. So no credit to me. Anyway, thank you for whatever attention you paid to the book. And if you bought a copy of the book and you bought it from Skywatch TV, if you get a spare minute and you've got an Amazon account, it would be a great help if you'd go there and give the book a review. That just helps it show up in the search. And it's not about selling more books. It's about making people outside the choir, people who aren't in the choir already, aware of the book and aware of the fact that the Bible has answers to this mysterious phenomenon called unidentified flying objects and called alien abduction. That's the ministry of Joe Jordan and why multiple-time abductee Joyce Ahrens is so willing to speak out about this. It's because it's a spiritual phenomenon. It is not a physical phenomenon. These are not extraterrestrial entities who are entering our domain and abducting humans. They are extra-dimensional entities, spiritual entities who are interacting with us. And that's been going on for a very, very long time. Thousands of years, literally. All of recorded human history. We have dealt with demons and fallen angels and gods. And I use that term in air quotes, even though God in the Bible, I mean, capital G, Yahweh, God, doesn't use air quotes when he calls these lesser beings gods. So I should quit being so squeamish about that. But humans have always known that the spirit realm has been interacting with us. It's only in our last 100, 150 years or so that we've tried to put a scientific spin on these interactions and call them star travelers, astronauts. No, the Bible has an answer for this. And we Christians shouldn't be afraid to share that answer. So anyway, if you get a spare minute or two and can leave a review at Amazon and hopefully get some of the people who are watching Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, people who believe Eric Von Daniken is onto something, people who are avid followers of Zecharia Sitchin, or maybe thinking that, hey, that sounds like a plausible explanation for the things that we don't understand about, the ancient world, megalithic architecture, strange symbols on ancient temples and things like that. Hey, look, the more I read about ancient cosmology, what the ancient Near Eastern people believed, the Mesopotamians, the Akkadians, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, were really Amorites, and their descendants, the Canaanites and the Phoenicians and the Arameans. The more I read about that stuff, the more I realize we really know a lot more about what they thought and believed than the people on the History Channel would like us to think. And that's why somebody like Dr. Michael Heiser, who can actually read Sumerian, can issue a challenge to Zecharia Sitchin, who's now passed on, but Sitchin's followers, that they have never dared take him up on, which is, hey, look, show me exactly where in Sumerian he's pointing to the existence of other planets. Because either Sitchin and his followers can't read Sumerian, or they can and they're mistranslating it on purpose to promote a particular worldview. So, it's not as mysterious as they would like us to think. We do actually know a lot about what they believed. And it's not, let me say this, it is at the same time less mysterious and yet more mysterious than what the Ancient Aliens crowd wants us to believe. It is less mysterious in that it is not aliens from the planet Nibiru, and yet more mysterious because these entities were real, are real, and also, the Bible has something to say about them as well. That's going to be the focus of my forthcoming book, the book I'm researching and working on right now. Hope to have the manuscript done before we head to Israel in May. Working title, well, I'll hold off on that. But it basically is going to show how the cosmology of the ancient Near East, Sumer, Babylon, Canaan, Israel, Egypt, well, I'm not so much expert on Egypt, but I find a lot of correlation between those and what the later Greeks and Romans believed, and what we read in the Bible, and we will tie that into Bible prophecy and how that the gods who were punished and sent away to the abyss, to Tartarus, actually are going to get one final shot on the planet before the end of days. So anyway, enough babbling. Again, you'll find the offer for the book from Tom Horn and Defender Publishing at skywatchtvstore.com. That's skywatchtvstore.com. Hope you had an opportunity to see the new movie Alien Intrusion. Gary Bates and Creation Ministries International did a fabulous job with that film. We will keep an eye out and talk to Gary again when they get close to releasing the film on Blu-ray and DVD, because that's going to be a real powerful witnessing tool. Because we believe that this subject, the so-called UFO phenomenon, the alien abduction phenomenon, has deceived a lot of people, and it is an area, a mission field. And so we're looking forward to seeing when that film is available to in a format where you can hand it to other people who are curious about it instead of having to get them out to a theater. Yeah, that's what we got coming up. Sharon and I back on our regular schedule of producing the weekly Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship. We post that every week to gilberthouse.org, usually up by midday on Sunday, and hopefully you can find the time to join us there. We don't do it live. We record it and then upload it so you can listen when it's convenient for you. But again, the files are generally available by middle of the day Sunday. And coming very soon, we're going to start a midweek study on the book of Enoch, which has had more of an impact on New Testament theology, than we thought. So that is something we'll be adding to that lineup. But again, you'll see that at gilberthouse.org. A View from the Bunker is a production of Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. The opening theme is by Kevin MacLeod. His website is incompetech.com. The opening announcement by DC Good. Remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is A View from the Bunker.